Close quarter stick versus stick fighting tactics. Now, this is mostly a Filipino martial arts study. But to fully understand it all, I had to step out of the FMA for a while and do some retrofitting and extra work. Now, I don't know when and if you will ever be fighting someone stick versus stick anywhere, and that person will, coincidentally, have the same 28-inch stick to fight against you. But we're here to study mostly the martial art of the Philippines, and it has abstract benefits toward real fighting. I have another course that is completely tactical concerning the impact weapon and the baton. If you are interested in tactical use of an impact weapon, that is using your baton or your stick versus people that are unarmed, people with their own impact weapons of various sizes, knives, and also handling some gun threats, get our Impact Weapon Combatives book and also our DVD series that concerns this information. That is about you holding an impact weapon in your hand, blocking and striking and grappling against someone who is in a mixed weapons world. But the video today is just about Filipino martial arts and the close quarter events of single stick versus single stick. Let's try to explain how this close quarter event fits in the big picture. Of course, you should be doing all your dueling, your distancia largo, long distance, or largo mano material, and you're dueling it out. Must do that if you're doing Filipino martial arts. And then the next step in is where this sort of happens. Some people call it distancia media, medium range or close range, and it is where a lot of material is practiced. And in fact, in Filipino martial arts schools, you'll find this is the material that is mostly practiced. And that's why it's important to dissect it in the way that we're doing it. But when you're close, people are thinking, well, how, when you're swinging like mad, do you ever get close enough to pull off a trick or something like this? And really, this is about the diminished fighter. And if you should nick the guy's head, hit him in the elbow, or do something that diminishes his ability to think or act, then suddenly you're able to come in and do some of these things. And it's important to understand that. Remy Presas used to say, you train your whole life for a 4-second stick fight. And if you hit the guy in the head, close or far back, it may be over in just seconds, But if not, you're diminishing him, and then you're able to pull off some of these other tricks and things like this. Diminished fighter theory. Your opponent might be diminished through pain that you've caused him. He may arrive at the fight diminished, so to speak. He might be unathletic, untrained, or drugged or drunk. And you can suddenly do these things right away. So the diminished fighter theory is very important when you discuss these close quarter events. So I'd like for you to learn all the stick strikes and all the ways that they come. Then you must learn all the blocks, which are, of course, the counters to the strikes. Then you have to learn how to counter the blocks. And then you have to learn all the takedowns that occur. And we're not going to touch many of these subjects today. For instance, takedowns, you can catch our Paladin Impact Weapons Stick Takedown DVD. That's a whole study unto itself. Learning the strikes, another whole study unto themselves. We're just going to occupy ourselves with these events at this close quarter range. Just some brief beginning things. When at close quarters, you could be fighting with any different grip. There's basically 4 stick grips. There's one hand on one end. It's usually this way, but sometimes it can be this way. We call this the DMS, the two-handed grip. This would be the stick grip. This is like the rifle grip. You have the grip in the center, which is very good for ground fighting, but sometimes you disarm a stick and take it away in this grip. You have to fight with it this way. Use it as a big end. You can also drop to here and get your more conventional grip, but this is a common stick grip. And the fourth one is going to be two-handed grip, sort of like an American baseball bat. So those are the 4 ways that you might be fighting with these different grips. The 4 ways in which an arm attacks you. And of course, for the subject today, we're talking about the way the stick attacks you. The stick can attack you in a hooking motion from any angle or a thrusting motion from any particular angle. Two major principles right there. The other two of the four is a hit and retract version of that, or it's going to be a committed lunge that comes and comes and comes. The watik is sometimes a term they use for a hit and retract. So from the side here, a committed attack from a stick slash would be something that would come like this, any one of the angles. A hit and retract would come in and then come back. Later you will discover that you cannot pass a hit and retract because there's nothing there to pass. The only thing that you can pass is the committed attack. And that's pretty important. But these are the four ways that the stick attacks you. In a committed lunge, in a hit and retract, either in a thrust or a hook. This is important stuff when you start dissecting training. Another important point that stick people need to know. A lot of times I'll be teaching something and I'm doing a move and someone will come up and say, Hawk, I can't do that. And the problem that you need to look for as an instructor is the fact that in order to do this move, your stick must remain above his arm, on top of his arm, or above his stick. Or the move may require that your stick is below his arm or below his stick. And so what typically happens is people don't know this. And so they're doing a move that requires this, but they've done the slashing block. And all of a sudden, they're in the completely wrong position to do this. And so I just want to make you aware of that. The hit and retract keeps your stick on the high line above his arm and stick. And the committed lunge, or the banda slash will carry your stick below his limb. And then you can only do so many takedowns or disarms or moves. And that's an important thing to know as a stick guy, especially when you're teaching people, because that is a common mistake or problem that your students have. Here's another very important principle that I have used now for years and years. I pretty much stick to the combat clock for training, and I've abandoned the various multitude of diverse and non-systematic angles of attack drills that many Filipino systems use. They're different. They're not constructed properly with any sense. You know what I'm talking about. So I've sort of put all those aside. This is what I mean by earlier when I said I had to step out of the FMA world, get clear thinking to come back in and do something that's more scientific and practical to teach. If you use the combat clock, it's a very good teaching method. And you can see that what we're about to do is based on the basic training of the combat clock. With this format, you can do amazing study and instruction. And just briefly, I want to tell you that I teach all over the world. And a lot of schools are using the clock method for preparation for their newer students especially, so that they can get active right away. And then later, they learn and make them memorize the 8, the 10, the 12, the 27, the 44, the 144 angles of attack that almost no one can memorize, or that you forget very quickly. And so they like the idea of getting the student that walks right in the door into action by using this very simple clock method. And you will see that you will learn a great deal of information easily by using the clock. Blocking wise, we're just going to ask you to block something high. This would be an unsupported block. These unsupported blocks are not good against wild man long range attacks because the stick may collapse with the power. So, but close up, low velocity, short distance strikes, the single hand block may function. So you have a 12 o'clock, a 3 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, and a 9 o'clock. You can switch hands so that you have a 12, a 3, a 6, and then a 9 o'clock. There's a lot of discussion here subjects we can't really talk about a lot. A lot of people do what they call the roof block. And if you have a powerful shot coming in, this stick could hit anywhere out here and cave in on you. I'm a proponent of putting it up here, because if your stick caves, it may cave down only to the roof block, and it's giving you some distance and safety. If you start here, you have no extra space to protect you. This is contrary to a lot of Filipino martial arts training, but when people, they don't think about it, and they've never been hit in the head with a stick. And if you start this way, it gives you some extra protection, and it may take you to a retreat position of the classic roof block. It's very Filipino martial art and technology, but I'm explaining this to you. Then, if you block at 12, you're unsupported. Supported blocks may range from the end of the stick, the center of the stick, to down here on the hand. And that's your choice. A lot of systems will block using like the edge of the hand to support the stick and the block. I'm not a fan of this. No one should be really. This does nothing. And but you see people who are untrained and ignorant, innocently and naively dropping down to blocking like this. Man, you need this hand for something else. It needs to come up here, as you will see, and do a whole bunch of stuff. And having it brainwashed and mindlessly down here in a very low support position, it's just not that good. If you must put your hand down here, put it here where it actually stops something instead of not. So you have a high support on the stick, medium and low. And you also have, in this position, the forearm that may do any of these positions. What I worry about is this right here. I see people all over the world blocking like this. This is a visit to the hand bone doctor trying to fix your damage if you take a real strike. This open hand block is a storybook picture. You need something. Even this will hurt. You know, stick fighting sucks. And the reverberation on your body will hurt. So you have high, medium, and low. And then for today, I will quickly talk about the Dos Manos block. Very popular in many systems. You have a high or 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock. You have a 12 o'clock in any of these configurations. You have a 3 o'clock in any of these configurations. You have a 6 o'clock in any of these, and a 9 o'clock in any of these. We're going to talk about double blocking as we do our progression. There are more blocks than these, but this will get us started. Couple of quick things to worry about in blocking. If you're going to put the stick out and make it count, you have to really plant that stick to make it work. Let me just borrow this for a second. Consider hammering the stick. The visualization of doing this. This plants the stick and helps you place it out in good position. And of course, you would prefer, if at all possible, that the impact is within this range on the stick. High might be a problem. Low might get your hand involved. But we're asking you to play tennis here and put the racket into the impact and not, a high end or a low end hit on the stick. Beware, we have the 3 bewares. Beware the loose grip. If he hits me and I have a loose grip on the stick, you have to have a tight grip on the stick. And of course, we are big on beware the slashing block. If this comes in backhand and I slash, this is prissy material done by many people all around the world. That's because, Rawhide's not really hitting me in practice. And if all he has to do is hit me once, as I learned the first time I went to the Philippines, that, these slashing, dashing moves are often very difficult. You have to beware the slashing block. Leave the stick in place until he decides to do something else, or you feel that the force is over. I'm going to add one more kind of important feature to this, is when you hit, sometimes pushing the stick has an effect on him stopping the attack. This is traditional thought, of other martial arts systems, as well as now scientifically proven. And so you hit, and if you push, he may re-register another attack. But please beware the slashing block. It's coming in at 100 miles an hour. I've stopped it. I slash off to do my pretty next move, and now it's 60 miles an hour, still coming in and getting me in some way. And then, of course, beware of the collapsing block. You say, the loose block is when you just almost lose the stick on impact. Watch some immature stick fighters. You'll see a lot of that. But the collapsing block is when you're just not putting it out successfully and it's coming in. So worry about the three bewares. The loose grip, the slashing block, and then the collapsing block. On this same subject, let me show you what I learned in the Philippines the first time. In most practice, people are practicing with impacts right here in this range right here. And you could get away with murder, do many, many tricks if all you're doing is hitting each other, sticks, in this particular range. I want you to worry about that psychologically, coming out and just thinking about hitting sticks. That's what a lot of people do. They fall into this trap. In the Philippines, I learned that people were striking in this range. This is where a lot of the magical tricks done don't work, because if you slash at the block or something, the penetration is deeper and he's going for your head. And so this is kind of an important thing. Where are you trying to strike? The person's body, his head, or are you just trying to train and hit sticks? You could easily fall into this mistake. We say learn the strikes, learn the blocks, learn the counters to common blocks. And I've been teaching this in a format for years, putting them together from all the great people that have taught me through the years since the 1980s. I can't name them all in one spot. There's so many of them. Famous ones and then not famous ones, So they all showed me this. All I've done is just put this together. So basically, the first, number one, is just this quick and easy interaction of the 4 combat clock blocks and strikes. I strike, he blocks here, 6 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock. I strike anyway, he blocks anyway. And that format gets you started. And remember as you go, this contact point is really just a reference for a lot of training. He may be striking me and I block. It really doesn't matter who's doing what for a lot of this material. They're really just contact reference points. All right, this next one I like to try to have people do is, watch this in slow motion. I strike at 12, he blocks, he strikes me back at 12. I strike at 3 o'clock, he blocks, he strikes me back from that same side. Sometimes you can switch to his 3, but it's already here. This is probably statistically from where he is going to strike. It's about my clock, not necessarily his. I strike at 6 o'clock, he strikes me back at 6. I strike at 9 o'clock, he strikes me from there. So you see, it is a counter strike done for training purposes on the same angle as delivery. This is very good for students to practice and get introduced to the idea. We have 12 and 12. 3, he hits me back here. 6 o'clock, he comes low again. And then 9 o'clock, he comes over here. The next one kind of frees it up a little bit. I strike at 12, he blocks and hits me anywhere, and I have to block it. I strike at 3 o'clock, he blocks, he hits me anywhere, and I have to block it. I strike at 6, he gives me any strike. I strike at 9 o'clock, and he comes back and hits me anyway. So you see, it's strike, block, any line of attack for him to counter strike. Now the next one that we're going to take a look at in this progression I've put together, somewhat in order. It's a lot of material. Are impact disarms. This is not a disarm DVD. That deserves its whole other project. But there are some that fit in this progression very well. And so what I'm going to try to do is hit this guy probably on the weapon-bearing limb, but you do know that if you hit him anywhere, sometimes it can cause an impact disarm. So he gives me this 12 o'clock, and I'm able to strike and get an impact disarm. He gives me his 3 o'clock, I do some body evasion motion, and I'm able to hit here. He gives me a 6 o'clock, and I'm able to get an impact disarm. And he gives me a 9 o'clock, I body evade, get out of the sweet spot of his home run swing, and I'm able to get an impact disarm. So here we have 12, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock. Basic impact disarm work. Now the next one is going to be me early with all disarms. You know, there are early phase, mid phase, and late phase counters to these disarms. And an early phase counter to an impact disarm is an evasion. And so looking at it, you know, I am striking and I detect and see that he's coming to hit my weapon-bearing limb. Now this has to be the WTIC, the hit and retract, that he doesn't get to hit my limb with. So I have a 12, whoa, he tries to hit me. A 3 o'clock, yo, he tries to hit me. A 6, oh no, you don't. And then a 9 o'clock, and I pull it away. An early phase counter to an impact disarm. Look, it goes a little something like this. He's here, and I pull it back. 3 o'clock, oh, and I pull it back. 6, and I pull it back. And then 9 o'clock, and I pull it back. Countering the impact disarm. This time, next in the progression, our guy is fully committed. He's giving the fully committed lunging strike, you know, at your impact weapon. And so you retract, let it pass, and get a counter strike. I strike in at 3. I see it coming. I pull back. I let it pass by, and I get a counter strike in there. 6 o'clock, I come in straight or a slash up. I see it coming in. I get back, and I deliver a counter strike. And then I strike at 9. I see the stick coming in. Whoa, I pull it back. I watch that stick go by. Ho, there it is, and I give it a counter strike. And that goes a little something like this. Here's 12. Whoa, counter strike. My delivery at 3 o'clock, I see it, I retract, I counter strike. 6 o'clock, whoa, I hit. And then 9 o'clock, whoa, I see it go by, and then I counter strike. Essentially, an impact disarm on him. The next section describes a hand support block. And so I will strike down at 12 o'clock and then do any hand support block that might be needed. I will strike at 3 o'clock and do any hand support that might be needed. I'll strike at 6 o'clock and then do any hand support. And I'll strike at 9 o'clock and then I'll do any hand support that's needed. In terms of blocking, I'll block at 12 and then do any hand support. I block at 3 o'clock and do any hand support that's needed. I block at 6 o'clock and I do any hand support that's needed. And I block at 9 and I do any hand block that's needed. If you are glued to your stick, this will slow your hand support block down. It needs to free from the stick and do what it needs to do to save yourself. And systems that are glued to the stick are not free to the completeness of what they need to do to save themselves. I strike at 12 and then any hand block. I strike at 3 o'clock and then any hand block. I strike at 6 o'clock and then any hand block. I strike at 9 o'clock and then any hand block. I block at 12 o'clock, any support hand block. I block at 3 o'clock, any support hand block. I block at 6 o'clock, any support hand block. And then I block at 9 o'clock and I use any support hand block. I block at 12 o'clock with a stick. I block again anything else I need with a stick. Anywhere it might be coming in on a half beat. I block at 3 o'clock and then I block again with a stick. These are double blocks. using the stick. I block at 6 o'clock, and then I need the stick again for the hand strike or whatever else is coming in. And then I block at 9 o'clock, and I block again with the stick. You see the blocking. Support hand blocking, double stick work. To get, not double stick in the traditional sense, but you double block because you need to protect yourself. The block that you use will depend completely on where your stick and where your hand was the instant just before you needed that block. You must be free to respond to those blocks as needed. So the next workout set, after you've been loaded up with this information, is I am going to strike up above, and then he gives me a hand attack, and I block it. I strike at 3 o'clock, and here comes a hand attack, and I block it. I strike at 6 o'clock, here comes a hand attack. I block at 9 o'clock, and here comes a hand attack. You know, the real badass fighters are using all their body and not just the stick in close quarter stick work. You have to have this free hand to do this work. Now, he strikes me. I block, and here comes the other strike, and I knock it out of the way. He gives me a 3 o'clock. I block it, and I knock the hand away. 6 o'clock. I block it, I have to knock the hand away, and then his backhand or 9, I block it, and here comes that punch, and I use it. So, must be ready to double block. On this subject now, I'm going to strike and then use the stick to block. I strike down at 12 o'clock, he punches, and I block. Double duty here, the stick also comes in for the quick block. Just freeze in this position and turn slightly sideways. Gee, why am I, using this over here? Because if this comes at my face, I need this over here. And this is, we're going to be passing stabs later in this production. But this is why, we need to split this up. This hand has got to rip itself free from this stick and cover the wide space of attack that someone will do to you. The problem with many Filipino martial arts is they fight themselves. If they have a certain philosophy and a certain attack, years and years, you're fighting the mirror image of yourself and not the bastard from another system who doesn't play your game. And that's why it's important to be free and not stick to such a rigid situation. I'll strike at 12. We'll start again. Boom! And here comes this, and I block from here. I strike from 3 o'clock, and I block with the stick. I strike at 6 o'clock, and I have to block with the stick. I strike at 9 o'clock, and then I have to block with the stick. So the stick in that one is doing double duty. I am striking and then blocking. Striking and then blocking. So he gives me at 12 o'clock, I block, and then I block with the stick, double duty. Over here, I block, and then block with the stick, double duty. He gives me a 6, I block, and I block with the stick, double duty. Here and then here. And that's using the stick twice for 2 blocks. We also must do the support kick strike. And so Rawhide will strike at 12 o'clock and he'll do any kick. He'll strike at 3 o'clock and do any kick. He'll strike at 6 o'clock and do any kick. And he'll strike at 9 o'clock and then do any kick. And then we'll go even further. He will strike, punch, and then kick. And this is why a person needs to be able to block with his hand, forearm, whatever, and of course the stick, because we don't know where this is going to come from. The real stick man is striking and kicking as well as hitting with the stick. And so if I strike at 12 o'clock, the first set we're going to do is I'm going to cut the block. I strike at 12 and he blocks, and I'm going to maneuver through the mastery of me working all the time, working out with sticks. It's become a part of me. That's why we have to do all this work all the time. I am going to cut the block. If this hand is here, I'm going to try to get that one.
If it's not there, this is a single hand, I'm going to try to cut the block. So the first counter to common block I like to teach in a set is cutting the block. Here's a 3 o'clock. I strike. I'm thwarted. And now I'm going to unthwart the situation by cutting the block. I am told there's no such word as unthwarted. But I like it. And I've just invented it. Here is 6 o'clock. He blocks. I cut the block. Here is 9 o'clock, and he blocks it. 1 or 2 hands. If that's my only shot, I take it. If that hand is out of the way, I take it. I am cutting the block. We'll switch sides and we'll do that again. Cut the block. 3 o'clock, cut the block. 6 o'clock, cut the block. 9 o'clock, and I cut the block. The second in the series I like to show is redirection. I redirect on another line of attack as my counter to his block. I strike and he blocks. And now I'm going to redirect on some other open line of attack. Here's 3 o'clock. He blocks. I redirect on another line of attack. 6 o'clock. Redirect on a completely other line. And then 9 o'clock. Redirect on a completely other line of attack. Redirect. And now the third one I always show, I just have called invading hands. And that's we use the 4 P's, the pinning, passing, pulling, or pushing of the opponent's limbs to get in for the better target. You might call it tappy-tappy, you might call it trapping hands, but this is, the root of it, the 4 P's, pinning, passing, pulling, or pushing. If you push a limb in the air, it's not pinned against anything. It's a push. If you push against a body, a wall, a floor, or anything, then you've pinned it, But here we have a classic example. I strike at 12 o'clock, he blocks, and I just push this out of the way, and I get a strike. I strike at 3 o'clock, I'll push this down and strike a pin it against his leg. Boom, I use invading hands to get into the target. And go from there. And then, of course, later, if you catch our stuff, you will get to see in the Takedown DVD all the follow-up takedowns. That is not what this film is about. It's just about these interactions. So, let's turn around over here. And maybe at this angle right here. This looks pretty good. I strike. Clear. 3 o'clock. I clear it. 6 o'clock, I invade in and clear it. 9 o'clock, I invade in and I get a strike. Now that would be one level of obstruction, because we're talking about the person having double blocks, for example. He might block with his hand. It's a good idea to do one level of obstruction and then 2 levels of obstruction. He puts up something else that you have to clear. 3 or more levels of obstruction, I like to say, you're kind of in a Jackie Chan movie. Back away, do something else, because it gets a little ridiculous when you go that deep. It gets kind of unreal. So here we have, I strike at 12, I clear the first one, he catches me, and I clear the second one. That was with a push-pull. We'll talk about that later. But here, I clear the first level of obstruction. He, stops me here. I clear, and I get away. 6 o'clock, I knock this aside. He comes. Boom. 2 layers of obstruction I'm taken care of with the invading hands. We're going to talk extensively about grabbing as we proceed with this film. But invading hands, 4 P's, the pinning, passing, pulling, or pushing of the opponent's limbs to get into that best target. Next, of the counters to common blocks, really the last category that I like to show a lot is going to be the axis strikes. Using his stick as an axis point. We like to show a sliding stick, a handle punch, and a tip stab as 3 major counters to these. It will depend completely on his position. But if you're properly trained and moving in all the time, you just take the best move. And it's probably going to be one of these 3 situations. Let's just take a look at the sliding stick. If I strike at 12 o'clock, he's got 2 hands on the stick in a Dos Manos style block. I hit, and then I have the wherewithal and the training and experience to slip that stick down and get a hand strike, like an impact disarm on a hand. If I'm really cool, and I might could get 2, but it's good to practice. And that looks like this: hit, and slip. Hit and slip down. Here's a 3 o'clock. He blocks it. I slide the stick down and I try to get the hand strike. He might not drop the stick just then, but 2 seconds later, the second one may cause the impact disarm. So you're getting an aggressive move and taking the best shot you have for the moment. We hit here, I have the sliding stick possibly right there, and I hit here, and I've got that sliding stick that catches the hand. A skillful stick person will be able to think of that as they're coming in. The handle punch is going to be good for 3 of the 4 basic motions. You remember, in basic training, the basic clock is 12, 3, 6, and 9. Advanced training is all the numbers on the clock. And so these are all the angles that we talk about. It's just that the basic clock is a place to start. So I give him this 12 o'clock. He blocks high. The handle punch shoots right in and gets a strike. This is a classic takedown from here, not the subject of our work today. 3 o'clock, he blocks in this manner. This is all open. I handle punch in. Come in for a strip and keep disarm. Any kind of motion you want to come in for any kind of a takedown. 6 o'clock, he's hit down. 6 is not very conducive to the handle punch, but I've seen people do it and like it. And then 9 o'clock, he has chosen to keep this open in the natural motion of his block. And then here comes this shot that's in, and then you come in and do your dirty work. Worth mentioning from here is if he blocks in this manner, my handle punch is an easy swing. If he blocks this way, my handle punch is not any good. He will probably, as I come in, just drop his elbow reflexively, not even a trained deal. So that's what you have to work. If he gives you this, it's lunch. It's right there to come in and do stuff with. If he accidentally gives you this cover spot, then the axis strike of the handle punch is a bit difficult. So really, I like it at 12, at 3, and at 9. 6 is a little funky, but I've seen people do it. And then you do have to concern yourself with the position of his hands and whether or not you can come in with that handle punch. But you're using his stick as an axis to come in. What if he does do that? A third option could also be the tip stab. And so if I strike at 12 and he blocks, I have a tip stab. See, look at the conversion here. We'll get a little bit closer. Look at this conversion. I hit, raise, and then strike. 6 o'clock here. See, my handle punch is ineffective because of this possible elbow drop. So I am going to swordsmanship my way in and get that 3 o'clock hooking stab that comes in. 6 o'clock, not so good, to be able to do that stab, but you can. But he's quite likely to drive that even further down, not go somewhere. Just instinctively do that. And then 9 o'clock, I can't come in here. I have to swordsmanship my way. We would call that, 3 o'clock hook, 6 o'clock hook, 12, 3, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock hooking tip stabs, which you should already know when you study the proper stick striking. Next, in this close quarter situation, we'll just take a look at a little series, the passing series. And remember what I said earlier. In order to pass a knife attack, a stick attack, a punch, it has to be the committed punch and not the hit and retract. It has to be the committed stick slash and not the hit and retract stick slash. Because if he retracts, there's nothing to pass. This is very important to learn in doctrine. And here's an example, though, of a guy who's giving you a 12 o'clock committed, a 3 o'clock committed, a 6 o'clock committed, and a 9 o'clock committed. And we are going to try to use the pummel to pass. Now, this opens up a great discussion in the world of sticks. 2 or 3, 4 systems of the world have no pummel. And they will say that this is like choking up on the stick, and it reduces the power of the hit. Those of us in America are familiar with baseball, and it's like choking up on your baseball bat and not giving you a full range of a powerful swing. And so they then, for this reason, do not have a pommel or a handle sticking out. And the other reason is that they fear the snake disarm. There's your two reasons there why many systems, a handful, do not have a pommel. I come from the systems where we have a pommel strike for the handle punch that we talked about earlier, for passing and hooking, grappling, and takedowns. I choose to have a handle, and many systems do this. They will, grab here like this, and then they'll grab here. And then that's the prescribed distance, and this is a common test that they would do. But look at it this way. If I swing this stick, and I have 50 pounds of pressure without a handle, and I swing this stick choked up slightly, and I've got 43 pounds of pressure on impact with a handle, and the human skull shatters at 20 pounds of pressure, what does it matter? It doesn't matter. You see? And so I will rather have the ability to pull off all these tricks with an extra handle sticking out than not have the ability to do that. And so that's why I choose to always have some handle exposed. It makes sense. It makes science. And the worry of speed and hitting in that sort of a duel is Olympic, almost godlike Asgard battle. That I'm going to battle someone in a duel where, my God, I think I need 0.02 seconds more by not having a handle on the stick. To me, it's a no-brainer. I'm keeping this. I like to hit with it. I like to catch with it. I like to take down with it. And I'm keeping it. And I suggest that you think about it too. So here we have a 12 o'clock attack. I'm zoning out of the way. I'm getting that body evasion. If this continues, it's going to hit me in the leg. So I've got to twist and get out of the way, which is our dodge evasion drill, something we do elsewhere. So here comes this 12. I hook it and I pass it. Here's a 3 o'clock. I've got to get out of the way. It just so happens I can do passing with this. He gives me this, a pommel strike low, and I'm trying to hook it and pass it. Here comes the 9 o'clock. I hook, and then I pass it out of the way. And so I'm using the hook to catch and pass these particular attacks. Next, a close quarter look at some passing using the shaft of the stick. And so if this comes in up ahead, I use the stick to pass it over. This comes in here. I hollow my body out, trying to not get hit on my legs, and I pass it over. He gives me the straight stab at 6 o'clock. Has to be committed for me to be able to pass it. If it's a hit and retract, there's nothing to pass. And then look at this as it comes in real slow. The stick, I get out of the way and I pass it over. And we're using the shaft of the stick to pass his stick. If he comes in with a 12 o'clock, I may have to use my hand on his stick or on his hand to pass. I'm progressing right now into something about grabbing, because when the hand touches, then you were able to start grab. That's coming up. 3 o'clock, I get out of the way. I pass this or pass this. 6 o'clock, easy to pass the stab. Easier to pass the stab. And then at 9 o'clock, I get out of the way and I pass. So if we passed with this, we've passed with this, and now we've passed practice with this. Next thing we're going to do, now that we've introduced the hand in some of this passing and so forth, is we're going to try to grab the opponent's limb. Now, this can happen, especially if the subject is a diminished fighter, and he's diminished physically because of you or because of himself. Here's a 12 o'clock. This comes in, and I grab the opponent's limb. Inside grab, outside grab, doesn't really matter. If I happen to be over here, I can grab it over there. If I'm in, grab it. Where your thumb is critical. We'll talk about that later, but in life, you can only grab things two ways. Thumb up or thumb down. This elicits a variety of different responses. If you're thumb down, there's a group of things that are good. If you're thumb up, there's a group of things that are good. If you're smart, well-trained, you'll take advantage of it immediately. You can feel the advantage. You'll feel it when you try to do stuff. There's a lot of time in the Philippines. The first time I went, or maybe the second time, I don't know, but it was a lot of work. Palm in, palm out, thumb up, thumb down. A lot of time spent doing that because it's important. So here's a 3 o'clock. I stop the stick and I catch it. Here's a 6 o'clock. I stop the stick and then I catch it. Here's a 9 o'clock. I stop the stick and then I catch it. And 12, I catch it. 3 o'clock, I catch it. 6 o'clock and I catch it. 9 o'clock and I catch the weapon-bearing limb. The next set, then, I really don't want this to be a disarm DVD at all, but it fits in this progression, so I want to do it. We have, in the 5 disarms of the world, we've already covered the impact disarm, and this one is going to be the strip and send disarm. We strip and send it because we've caught the limb. Later we will strip and keep because we caught the stick, but this is a strip and send. And so he gives me this 12 o'clock. I block it and I catch, and you can use any method to strip and send that stick out. And then, you go into any style takedown that you want to do. Here's a 3 o'clock. I catch. You can do that. Here's this one here. Look at it again. 3. I stop it with a solid block. It's stopped. Hanging there in space for a second. I seize this bad boy right here. And then I'm giving it a little twist. I'm going to use my forearm. And there's an art to this. And I don't want to mention it, but since it's a Filipino martial arts DVD, maybe I will. You can send the stick to targeting if you care. And you can, in other words, if I come down here, push real hard on this arm and shove this, I can send his stick out spinning through the air. If I catch it here, I can send this stick up high as opposed to being down here. I can send it pretty tightly somewhere. But you know what? It also depends on the tension in his grip. So it's not completely my choice. I'm stuck with whatever he's got here as opposed to where I'm going to target it. And that's your art tip for the day. As Remy would say, you can hit him in the head, but I want you to learn the art. And that's the subjects of the art. So here's a 3 o'clock. Again, I hit, he stops, I catch, and I can send the stick out. 6 o'clock. Here, I block it. I catch. Here's a quick strip and send from here. One of Ernesto Preces' favorite. I slide the stick down to an impact. My left hand pulls up violently. My right hand shoves down. And I've got a strip and send. And then any other follow-ups that you may want to do to take him down from this side. And we have the 9 o'clock. I stop and I catch. I can do the strip and send from here. To see it again, 9. I stop it. I catch the limb. Here is another critical Filipino martial arts point. They used to call, some systems call the key, catching the ball of the thumb. The thumb and the ball of the thumb is usually responsible for whatever weapon a person is holding. And so if you get the key, the ball of the thumb, and get it back as hard as you can, and shove forward, you can also target and shoot that stick anywhere that you want. You can do it like this here too, but not here. You have no mojo here. Up here, you have mojo. Oh man, right here, you got a lot of it. And you can strip and send that stick. A lot of times on the strip and sends, the Filipino masters will try to get, in the send motion, a little hit onto the body.